Good morning. Welcome to the Nurse Doc Show. Jacques had a late night, obviously, last night. So thank you, Jacques. So I'm super excited. I apologize about last week, but I told you all about last week. I was in LA, so unfortunately, I do apologize that I didn't get to have the show last week. But this week's show makes up for it. It is kind of like, while it is one that's really close to my heart, is actually probably more closer to Jacques' heart, my Norman, today. So I'm really excited to talk about this. So, we're live on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And also, don't forget to check out the podcast. It's live. You can log into the podcast and download the Nurse Doc app on Google Play Store and Google and Apple iTunes Store. So yes, it's a app, not just simply on Apple Podcasts. No Sade. Also, you can find it on Audible. So it's an Audible book. The show is on an Audible book. Anyways, so the majority of HBCUs are endangered. Morris Brown in Atlanta, Georgia lost its accreditation in 2002. St. Paul's College in Lawrenceville, Virginia closed its doors in 2013. Barber Scotia College in Concord, North Carolina lost its accreditation from the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools in 2004, and just recently announced in 2015 that it will not be open for spring 2016. Wilberforce University in Wilberforce, Ohio, by the way, for those of us who know, if you know, you know. Wilberforce, Ohio just received full accreditation status in fall of 2015 after being placed on show cause in spring of 2014. With all of these things and so many more scandals that have happened over like the last 20 years in HBCUs, conversely, HBCUs have been and continue to be a beacon of hope for the Black community. Famous HBCU alumni include W.E.B. Du Bois, George Washington Carver, Thurgood Marshall, Martin Luther King Jr., Reverend Jesse Jackson, Spike Lee, just to name a few. So today I'm going to get to celebrate the importance of HBCUs on mental health. Personally, it definitely, I will say that my HBCU saved my life. And played a very intricate part in my life, in learning my identity and learning to appreciate who I was. So I'm excited to have on Dr. Tara Turner, who's joining us today from HBCU Elite to talk about this interesting topic and dynamic of mental health and how her program and organization is helping to improve like the HBCU visibility. It's it is no surprise and actually well known and talked about that student athletes at HBCUs can't recruit in the same way as our prestigious white institution. One, and then two, just a whole lot of dynamics that go along with that. So I'm going to allow Dr. Tara Turner to introduce herself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you for having me. Good morning. My name is Tara Turner, and I am the founder and executive director of HBCU Elite. It is a nonprofit organization that I created to bridge the gap between student athletes who are interested in attending HBCUs and HBCU athletic programs. So oftentimes, I hear a lot of complaints from family members or friends of student athletes that they're having a really difficult time getting in contact with coaches from HBCUs. And as a coach at Clark Atlanta, I'm the women's tennis coach at Clark Atlanta also, I'm able to see the other side where I'm getting 20, 30 emails a day with the wrong information included, and it gets kind of overwhelming. So what I attempted to do was create a platform to bridge that gap.
That's really interesting. So you talked about being on the staff and faculty at Clark Atlanta. So you graduated from Clark Atlanta with your BA in Mass Communication.
Correct.
And you received your PhD in Higher Education Administration from Barry University. And you got your Master's in Education from Jacksonville University.
From Jacksonville University.
And
Yes.
you pledged the devastating divas of Delta Sigma Theta sorority incorporated.
Yes, correct.
So,
Correct.
that's amazing. So, I mean, all of these like things on your resume is incredibly impressive.
Thank you.
I mean, just being in a Black Greek letter organization in and of itself breeds a sense of community and pride for folks of color that we sometimes didn't always get exposed to.
Absolutely.
So why did you choose to go to an HBCU?
So both of my parents went to HBCUs. I'm from Florida, so my dad went to FAMU, and my mom went to a school that's not as known, Edward Waters College in Jacksonville. And so I went to school, elementary, middle, and high school, being a minority. And so, like in my graduating class of 501, there were only 18 Black people. So my junior year, senior year, things started getting a little rough. We started having a lot of racial tension, and I just knew that that was not the experience that I desired for college. I wanted to go somewhere where I could be celebrated, and really live in my truth and live amongst people that looked like me, who were really just doing it. And I wasn't able to get that before I left home, so I wanted to get that from college. So.
Dope. I mean, so I went to a HBCU because one of my high school counselors, I didn't know anything about an HBCU, which is really weird because I grew up in Talladega, Alabama, and it's one of the oldest like HBCUs. But it wasn't, I didn't know what an HBCU technically was. I know students went there, my mother taught there, but I really had no interest in going there. Like most of the things because one, they didn't have a band, so I wanted to do something with band, and that was Jacksonville State University. Long story short, being a young person, not really making great choices, when I applied to a PWI or several PWIs, they were like, oh, he's going to be like in remedial this. And my mother was like, absolutely not. My son is not, is not dumb. He may be a little lazy, but he's not dumb. And so I also had some other identity crises going on. I remember asking my mother, like, why don't I have like blonde hair and blue eyes? And she's like, honey, that's not for you.
Not at all.
And like really being honest about it, like really being in like this sense of emotional despair, like why am I the other and not like my friends? Because just like you, I grew up in a community where wasn't a great deal of minorities, African American families. And so I was just kind of like, I want to be like them. I don't want to be like what I see in the mirror, And so when I went to Alabama State University for orientation, but for like this, high school visiting day with my guidance counselor, and there wasn't a lot of people who went from my school again. I was like, all these people.
What is this?
All these Black people are here to learn, and they having fun. Like I want to come here. And then that quickly changed when I got there, and I was like, please take me home. I want to go to Jacksonville State University with all my white friends. So that's really, really amazing. Like, so now why this particular HBCU? Why Clark, Atlanta? Because you said you grew up in Florida.
Yes.
Right. So why Clark, Atlanta?
I always thought I wanted to go to FAMU, and then I received, the weekend of the Florida Classic, I received a full scholarship to FAMU. I went up on stage, they called my name, and everyone was so excited, and it was just so confusing to me because that excitement that I was supposed to feel, I didn't have it. And so my parents were like, what's going on? What's wrong? And I'm like, I don't want to go to school. I don't want to go to school in Tallahassee. Everyone from Tampa is going to Tallahassee. Like, I want to do something different. I want to be somewhere different. So my parents were like, well, they offered you a full scholarship, so figure it out from there. So I started applying. I applied to Clark Atlanta. I applied to Howard, and both offered me a full scholarship. But in the spring of my senior year, I came to Clark Atlanta, and it was the week where everyone was campaigning for class president, all of that type of stuff. And I was out on the yard, and people had blowhorns. There was DJs. People were passing out candy, dessert. People were stepping, and I was like, oh, this is it. I don't need to see anywhere else. This is where I want to be. I went and I did my tennis tryout, and I was sold. That was it for me.
So being in tennis, which is already just known, I'm not making something up, as a predominantly white sport.
Absolutely.
A lot of the sports individuals that you know, that I know, even Pete Sampras, Billie Jean King, all of these people. I mean, so we have like these sprinkles like Arthur Ashe and Venus and Serena Williams, but they don't have that same kind of, I think, I feel like is a bit of notoriety, but also of financial, like long term. Like you look at Billie Jean King, Martina Navratilova.
Yes.
I know about tennis. Tennis is my thing. So I played tennis, and then in college I went to HBCU where the tennis was like, they were like, what tennis? No, we ain't got none of that here. So that's interesting that you went to a school that embraced something that and that said, hey, we have like a strong tennis program.
Absolutely.
And we're going to continue to nurture that all the way through. I know I see Jacques got a question over here from our Instagram. Thank you to our people from Instagram, by the way.
These are not really questions, but these are people just showing love.
Mm-hmm.
So I have Atlanta Knight saying, good morning, Dr. Turner. Go HBCU Elite.
Thank you.
And I have Chanel, quintessentially Nell.
Yep.
HBCU Elite is breaking down barriers.
Yes.
Thank you
Yes, for the morning love. We need all the love we can get. But so just back to like the conversation, I see like, so here I am, like, really in despair, like African American, young black male. I'm not gonna lie, when I went to a HBCU, that was the first time I saw Roots. And that was Humanities Through the African American Experience, which was by, and the classroom was Dr. T. Clifford Bibb. Will never forget, I had never in my life met a man so black and so well spoken. And I was like, wow. I mean, I couldn't even make it through actually because the experience was so traumatic for me, like learning about the Amistad and learning about all of those things. And so it helped me gain a real sense of pride as an African. I was like, wow, we are so diverse and there's so many of us, and they don't have to speak like me. They don't have to think like me, and their goal is to be better, to do better for the world. And it gave me such a sense that I didn't have before. As you work with like these teenagers, basically, who are coming from all different histories, experiences in the South. What do you see as a sense of kind of like their sense of self, their sense of their community?
So it really, I would say it actually depends where they come from. So although majority of the HBCUs are located in the South, we have students from all over. So in particular on my team, I have girls from the islands, I have girls from California, from Las Vegas, from up north, so New York, so it's just Florida, of course. They come from everywhere, and I've noticed that their high school experience and their relationship with their parents as well, and if their parents went to an HBCU or kind of have an understanding of that kind of guides or shapes or molds who I'm getting. And then, the shaping has already started, then they get to me, and then I'm able to kind of like work with them a little bit more, and then hopefully push them out into the real world as having more than when they came in. So although I'm a tennis coach, it's a lot more than that because I have to develop you as a young lady.
Exactly.
So it's like, although I coach tennis, there's certain things as well. Like if we're traveling, no, you can't have a bonnet on when you come downstairs to eat breakfast in the morning and you have on a Clark and a tennis shirt. And it seems simple, but it's very important because if you're on a work trip, you don't wear a bonnet downstairs so I'm preparing you for what's next. And so little things like that, making sure that I expose them to different internship opportunities when I hear about them. And just really making sure that they're prepared for what's next.
Again, teaching tennis players, having young tennis players come into your program, do you find that they struggle like with self-identity, even though, let's be honest, in the age of social media, because I don't think you're quite as old as I am. But I went to college. I started college in the 90s. We didn't have Instagram, Facebook. So I didn't have all of these things of people who looked like me. My world simply almost existed around Talladega, Alabama, and what I knew it to be. So it was kind of like, again, this whole experience. Do you find that these young women struggle with self-identity or like with like that in the age of social media?
Absolutely. I try to get young ladies who are very headstrong. Tennis is a game for smart people. So if you're not smart,
it is a game for
you're not going to be on my team. So I pride myself in the fact that the young ladies on my team in general, out of the athletic department, we have the highest GPA. So that often translates over into I might need to miss practice because I need to go to an extra study session, or I'm struggling in this. So before we get behind, okay, let me speak with someone and get you a tutor so that we can work on this and work on that. But the social media part definitely plays a role. With my team, not as much, but I also work in the School of Education. And so my students there, absolutely. I get students from all over the place, and they struggle. They really struggle. And it's kind of like how you said an HBCU saved your life. I think for a lot of them, this is their last chance. This is their opportunity to get it right. And so it forces you to give them a lot of grace. With accountability. Right. I'm big on that. Grace with accountability.
Exactly. Oh my God.
Just
Amazing.
So that I can prepare you for what's next, but also nurture you enough for you to get there. So, absolutely.
Yeah, so grace and accountability is something that is so significant in, like, I feel like in HBCU or my HBCU experience. I can speak to that for my own experience. Because again, being away, I was away from home, 3 hours away from home, and never had accountability in that way. My mother, she's amazing. She's watching this show. Thank you, Mom, for being like who she was. My mother helped me not only with papers. She did my student loan information. She did my FAFSA, everything she did to kind of like help me along that path. And I feel like, being at an HBCU, you gotta almost have some sense of community, whether it be your own family that's like nurturing you through, or like your sense of community gained at being at an HBCU. What sense of community, or do you feel like that's still relative today? As you've gone from being now Dr. Turner to that young girl on Clark, fresh girl on Clark Atlanta.
Absolutely. So one big thing, like my tennis team is a sisterhood. So I'm in a sorority, so sisterhood is important to me. But they are a sisterhood. So if something happens, they can go to each other and then try to work things out. And then if necessary, of course, come to me. But it's very important to me that when a young lady comes onto campus on my team, that she knows that she has a group of people looking out for her, no matter where she's come from. So I have one young lady, she's from the islands, and her mom will send me a message on WhatsApp, like, thank you for taking care of my daughter, because she knows that her daughter is in good hands, that she is going to be taken care of, even though she's miles away and couldn't get to her if she needs to. She knows that she can communicate something to me, I can get it to her or support her in whatever way. So that sense of community is created on my team, and I think that's important because I grew up and I was put in tennis. My dad put me in tennis because it's an individual sport. So I was playing softball, and if we lost a game, I could tell you what everybody else on the softball field did wrong. And so my dad was like, you need to do something where we can just see what you're doing wrong. So that's why I got in tennis. So I grew up thinking tennis was an individual sport. So when I got to college and I saw all these black girls on this team, and they're just as good as me, and we're going to win a championship. What are you talking? So it was a really amazing feeling. And so my teammates, we lived together sophomore through senior year of high school. And so, of college, stayed in the same dorm all 3 years. We're still good friends. And so I try to create that same sense of community with the young ladies on my team now. It's very important.
In the title, I talked a bit about, the mental health, and I think it's also important to reflect on some of the difficulties and challenges of being in an HBCU. Sometimes being, around our community is always not so nurturing. Surprisingly, we can be very hard on one another. Just in spite of the grace that I received, because I remember going into class saying, you know what, Professor, he was like my, I think from one of those issues, sociology classes. I was like, oh, my son is sick, and that's why I missed your exam, because I had to take care of my son because my wife, she works, and he was like, everybody was like, he's gay. And I'm sure the professor knew too, but he was like, you're gonna stop by my office and you're gonna take the same exact exam now. So that sense of grace. I honestly, if I had gone to a PWI, because I did want to attend the University of Alabama, which was like 30,000 people, and I see these classes, I would have got caught up in the number. I wouldn't have had an opportunity. They would have been like, no, we don't need your excuses. Right. We got so many of you to take care of. And not that we see you as a young black man still struggling to develop emotionally, still struggling to develop spiritually, still struggling to develop, sexually, and give you a little bit of grace and say, you know what? You have a lot of catching up to do that your white peers are already beyond you. So that's, just really, really, really great. But unfortunately, you go to that financial aid office. You go to the financial aid office and, you might not be met with the nicest of people. Yeah. Who have the nicest of attitudes, who are always, who are willing to give you the information because they're the gatekeepers. They're considered the gatekeepers. What was your experience, both good and not so good, of being in HBCU?
So thankfully, I was able to attend Clark Atlanta on a full scholarship. So I had to maintain a 3.5 GPA. And I was on the presidential scholarship, and it's fairly simple. Go to school, do what you're supposed to do, play tennis, until my junior year. And I was studying abroad in Sevilla, in Seville, Spain.
Yes.
And I got a message from my parents that I had gotten a letter in the mail, and my GPA had fallen to like a 3.42. And I had to keep a 3.5 to keep my scholarship. And so I emailing my coach, and I'm like, okay, now I need my tennis money. And so he was like, okay, I thought we didn't need your tennis money, so I used it for, so I did an appeals process, and thankfully they ended up giving me that last year, because that would have been very interesting if they had not. So I was able to graduate, no debt, undergrad. And so that was, I realized how fortunate I was for that to be my experience, because I have a lot of friends who graduated over $100,000 in debt just from undergrad. And that's kind of difficult when it comes to HBCUs for me, because I know that some people getting into an HBCU was their only opportunity to be able to go to college. But some people, that wasn't their only opportunity, and they could have gotten scholarships to other schools, but they still chose to come to our institution. So that was a little difficult for me, watching my friends struggle with that. But I'm grateful, extremely grateful, that I was able to go and not have to pay anything. I would say and then just in general, I was told by, I went to school for mass media, and I was told by the Morehouse men's basketball coach when I was interviewing him one time, he said, this is a utopian society. This is the only opportunity that you'll have to be around this many people that look like you, who are trying to accomplish things, who are, and without you all having any real responsibilities. And I didn't really understand that part until I got grown, the real responsibilities part. So I really just enjoyed my experience. I enjoyed on campus, I enjoyed the tennis, I enjoyed the traveling, I enjoyed the parties, all of the cafeteria, the things that people take for granted, even the cafeteria, fried chicken Wednesdays, you know what I'm saying? So
Exactly.
all of it, I really enjoyed it. And I would say the only thing that I really could have done without, I wish that the dorms would have been a little updated. So my freshman year, I got sick. There was mold in my dorm, and I got sick, and I ended up having to switch dorms. So that was it was an interesting process. That dorm did shut down, but they never opened it back up and gutted it out and cleaned it. So I wish they would have done that, but other than that, I really loved it.
Yeah.
So those dorms are kind of tough.
we have a question from
Just more love. Plain Jane Mia B _ 87 says, that's my best friend.
Oh, that's not
Hey, Mia.
But yeah, that is one of the negatives. Is a lot of the times. I mean, from the Black Harvard, Howard, all the way down to like the smallest of HBCUs in West Virginia. Is the dormitories are really kind of struggling. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. At my dorm, I was like, "Is this a fallout shelter?" Like, I was like, "Is this a fallout shelter?" But I will never forget though. Also, my RA and the dormitory director, Mr. Greathouse, took me and was like, "Boy, what are you doing? Where are you going? You going out in these pajamas and these house shoes to go where? To class?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to class." "No, you're not. You're not leaving out here." And he had a full like on W.E.B. Du Bois Jerry curl and like it was like serious. It was like serious. And I mean, and then I looked at my friends who were at PWIs and I talked to them and during the summer and I'd be like, but they like. I'll just roll out of bed,
sweatshirts, whatever.
roll out of bed, and go to class. So I was like, so definitely like that adds a sense of pressure too. Like again, as a community, because you're in your community, how do I look the part? How do I, get this? Especially if you're coming from such different experiences growing up. Like again with access. Again, like. Luckily I got a band scholarship that paid for 3 years of my college experience, and then after of course 3 years, I mean the last 2 years I just I had to pay out of pocket. Okay. But luckily it was like only like $5,000
so
for
not
the
too
year.
bad.
So no, not too bad.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. What is your like advice for like students as they think about kind of like, especially student athletes. Let me say that. Student athletes as they think about, their careers. We're seeing more of people who look like us. Simone Biles. We got her doing her thing. We're winning. Absolutely. In both on land, in the water, in the air. Like, how do you encourage or what do you tell them to think about as that high schooler, junior high schooler that says, my mom went to Tuskegee, or my mom went to Alabama State, or my mom went to Spelman, or went to another HBCU, but I don't see the person who's like, say for instance, in 12th grade going on to that. They're going to, and they want to be competitive. What is your advice for like them as they think through their next steps?
So I become very, I get kind of like an elitist attitude. If you don't want to be here, you don't have to be here. Because there's plenty of people that do. I'm serious because it's kind of like you inviting someone somewhere and then they're not really going to get the full benefits of it if they don't really appreciate it anyways. So I feel like, if you don't want to come, that's okay. There's other institutions for you as well. But for someone who's kind of on the fence or straddling, and they're like, I'm not going to get the same opportunities if I attend an HBCU. Yes, you will. Yes, you will. It's very simple. I mean, look at our vice president.
Right. Very
simple. And if you look around everywhere and you just simply do a quick Google search, famous or celebrities who went to HBCUs, and there's people that will come up that you don't even realize attended our institutions. And I think I feel like we sell ourselves. Like, I mean, go on campus, go on a little campus tour, go to, we're in Atlanta, so go to Georgia State or go to Georgia Tech, and then come over to the AUC. That's all I'm gonna say. That's it. I don't have anything else to say because if you don't see the difference and you don't feel the difference, then maybe it's not for you. But most people will get it.
Okay, but I think sometimes the benefits aren't easily recognizable. I mean, because I remember the day, because so I just remember fondly, and I wish I had a picture, the day my mother, my grandmother, my siblings, we all packed up the car to take me to school. Actually, band camp, because band camp was before school. So I had to grab the band, and I remember walking into the band room, because you had to go there and check in first before you can go to the dorm where they're placing the crabs and where they are placing, upperclassmen. And I remember walking down the hallway, and one guy, I never forget his name, Darius from Birmingham, said, "What up, dog?" I was like,
who are you talking to?
And he's like, what up, what you play? And I was like, I don't talk like that. I was like, I don't talk like that. And I remember going out to the car, asking my mom, like, where all these black people going? She said, to school with you. I was like, all of them? And it was so, like, I was so, like, amazed. And again, some of these same people that I never would have thought would have been my friend, or like that I would have been a friend with a cymbal player. I play clarinet. Like, you're in the percussion section,
right?
You know, you don't take that much to do what you don't take that much to do what you do. We're not in the same. But made friends with people who were black, who were gay, who were straight, who were all of these things, and still today. And it was just like, you know what? I'm struggling. We come from the same lived experience. Absolutely. It was just like, wow, these are my brothers, and we don't have to have the same thing going on. And they appreciate me for who I am, and I respect them for who they are.
Yeah, when I first got to school, I'm very set in my ways. I know that's probably very difficult. Probably very difficult to tell, but I'm very set in my ways, and so.
Exactly, yes.
I know. And so when I went to school, I had a routine. Like, I had a calendar. I mean, I had my syllabus, my syllabi at the very beginning of the semester. I saw when my assignments were due. I knew what work I had to do if I wanted to, and I went out let me tell you, freshman I went out Friday night, Saturday night. I sung in the chapel choir, the Clark Atlanta Gospel Choir, every Sunday morning. My mama told me if you can go outside at night, you can sing in the choir Sunday morning. So I did that. But people would laugh at me because they would be like, what are you doing? Like, you're sitting in the caf for hours, because I was done with my classes at 11 a.m. People just starting their classes. I'm done. Now I'm in the caf for the next 3 hours, and I'm playing with y'all, but I'm getting my work done. Then I'm getting ready for tennis practice. And so everyone would laugh until we kind of got towards the end of the semester, and everyone realized they wasn't about to pass these classes. So then it's like, hey, hey, you could, and then it was like when we got to the next semester, there was an appreciation for who I was. But I think that's very important. If you go in not knowing who you are and being afraid to just be yourself, you can kind of get overwhelmed with what an HBCU has to offer. But I think because I came in very headstrong, this is who I am, I don't care. People you're either going to love me or you're going to hate me. And that's okay, but I am who I am, and this is what works for me. So.
Jacques, what's going on over there?
Still more love from Chanel. But a question that I had that's coming to my mind right now is, both of y'all started off at HBCUs and sort of transitioned to other institutions that were predominantly white. How was that switch over? So that's question number one. And another question that's coming to my mind is, like, when you were that young scholar at an HBCU, did you see the vision for who y'all are now? Could you see PsyD at the end of your name? Could you see PhD at the end of your name?
Wow, so I'll let you start.
Okay. Okay, so I'll take the first question, and I think I took for granted how nurturing my professors were. So when I went to get my master's, and at the time I'm teaching, I'm a first-year teacher, and I'm getting my master's in ed leadership. I had a class that I was taking, and I mean, I was going to class, but I mean, the extra stuff, like, this is my first year teaching as well, so I'm trying to do lesson plans, and I'm like, oh, you really still want me to do all of that? And I got a D. And in a master's program, you can't get a D.
You can't get a D.
And so I went to that professor, and I was like, excuse me, what do I need to do? Like, this will be the first and last time you ever see me again, but what do I need to do? And so he gave me some stuff to do that correlated with the work that I was doing as an educator, and pushed that from a D to a B. And then the rest of my master's program, I had A's. Like, you only have to teach me a lesson one time.
Right.
So I'm not going to be out here paying for school and embarrassed and flunking class, because that's flunking. So flunking classes.
Exactly.
I made the necessary adjustments and did what I needed to do. And for me, I had no vision of becoming an educator at all when I was in school. I thought I was going to be a sports journalist.
Mm.
So I went to school for mass media. So when I was in school, everyone knew me because I always had a mic. So like I got to interview Kerry Washington, Jennifer. Like everywhere, any event in Atlanta, I had my press pass and I was there. You couldn't tell me that I couldn't go to the boat show. Oh, I'm going. Like the Trumpet Awards, Samuel L. Jackson, you're hosting this year with your wife. I'm going. I'm meeting you. I'm doing everything that I could do. I did. So I had no idea that my senior year of college, I was going to end up becoming a TA for my favorite professor. And he was just going to give me the class. And so I was teaching these freshmen, and I'm like, where? Like, and to the point where when they had to fill out evaluations at the end of the semester, they had to redo them because they all evaluated me, really thinking I was their professor, and I'm a student too. And that's what sparked my love for education. But before that, if you would have told me I would have been a teacher, oh, okay. But then, now here I am, 12 years later, so.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to go with the first question, answer the first question, and I'll answer the second question later. But so moving on to a PWI, it was a very traumatic experience for me. Just the honest truth, it was a very traumatic experience for me. One, because I truly believe in the research about community learning theory, and I learned very differently, and I hadn't realized that. And so going from a place where I learned better with people with that look like me, that talk like me, and going into a school where it was expected and it was normalized, because most of them had graduated from a University of Alabama or another PWI. They're used to studying by themselves. And so me, I was alone. I was studying something completely new. It was an accelerated program. So it was me and only one other black guy, and he did not talk like me because he went to Oakwood and he was a Seventh-day Adventist. Oakwood, Seventh-day Adventist, and he was like, "Oh, you." And the teacher was like, "Well, why don't you study with Courtney? Courtney don't even like me. Just because we look alike doesn't mean all skin folk ain't kin folk, as they say." And so I struggled. I remember actually Dr. Lucinda, who was a former dean for the School of Social Work. She was teaching my class, and I got a C, and that's not acceptable. And not a doctoral, that was the master's program. And she was like, "Well, I'm sure you can go home and come back, and your parents will take care of you." I was like, "Girl, I'm from the projects. Ain't nobody going. I don't got no family to go home and take care of me. I'm it. I'm it. I'm the next hope. Even though it's crazy because my great-grandmother went to Alabama State Normal School. My grandmother went to Alabama State Teachers College. I had family who went to Alabama State College, and then I graduated from Alabama State University, and my sister and I. So we had this long legacy, but it was still kind of again, teachers. Most of my family was all teachers and went into the military and all that kind of stuff. So it wasn't like I had no rich family to go home to, and that was definitely not going to understand, that now you got through undergrad and you didn't flunk out of master. So I got my stuff together. Actually, I'll be honest, that's when I realized, that's when I started going to therapy. Because for the first time in my life, I saw myself as oh my God, I'm smart and I'm competitive. And then I kind of got into that thing again with my white classmates, because they're competitive. Absolutely. They already have that mindset. We're not all getting across the finish line. Absolutely. And in black schools, our thing is we're all getting across the finish line. So I had to go to a therapist and process that. And that's when I decided that I wanted to be a therapist.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's amazing. Everything always comes full circle.
Right.
So, absolutely.
Right. Exactly. And then again, me being a side D and getting a doctorate, no, I actually, it was kind of after that. I remember when I was working on my second master's, a classmate from high school, because I was a class clown, I was like an idiot. Just joking about the title. But she was like, "When did you get smart?" I was like, "I know, right?"
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I wasn't grades wasn't my focus, but again, Alabama State taught me again, you don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to be everything to actually get this piece of paper, and somebody it's one of those things you can't be taken away. So it was such an experience getting a side D, and then I really started really honing in. But yeah, I needed to have all of those kind of learning experiences, and so forth. So what was your kind of like thinking about PhD? I know you touched on it.
Um, I'll just say I wish I would have done it at a HBCU. It was uh, not the greatest experience. Not the greatest experience at all. I definitely didn't have the support that I would have liked. I had gotten accustomed to being able to do it on my own once I got my master's, but I did not have the support that I felt I should have. And when I was getting towards the end of my program, I had quit my full-time teaching job to teach part-time, so that I can be a graduate assistant and be able to not have to pay for school that school year. And they didn't offer all the classes that I needed. And so I ended up having to go to the dean. Like, I cut my salary in half so that I could be here, so that I could do these things. These classes need to be available. And my advisor at the time got very upset and disgruntled with me. And so she called me to her office, and she had a stack of papers. And so she was like, "Do you see this?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so she was like, "So that's someone's first draft of their dissertation. So I've had this for about 3-4 weeks. So it's up to you how this process goes." And so I looked and I said, "Are you threatening my dissertation process? Because I'm asking you for the classes that are supposed to, you know." And they were like, "Oh, it's fine. You're young. You don't know what I have going on. I don't care that I'm the youngest person in the program. You don't know how I've uprooted or changed my life to be in this program. So you still need to provide what you're supposed to provide." So I ended up having to change advisors my last year, and then things got back smooth. But it was then that I realized I'm in this by myself. So I'm either going to do it, or I'm going to fall and just be ABD like so many. So that's when I got, buckled down and did what I had to do. But I definitely did not feel the support that I know a lot of my colleagues who ended up going and getting their PhDs from HBCUs ended up feeling and needed. So.
Okay. Now, I see that we have like from the director. Can you tell us about HBCU Elite?
Of course. So HBCU Elite, like I kind of mentioned earlier, is simply a liaison between student athletes who are interested in going to an HBCU and HBCU coaches. And the student athletes, they create a profile, and then from there, so there's 107 HBCUs, but 85 of them actually have athletic departments, or athletic programs, excuse me. And so people don't realize even like the JUCOs, there's a few of them that have athletic programs. So they can put their academic information, their athletic information, upload some footage from competitive footage, and then the coaches are able to see them and connect with them through the site. So that is the biggest mission or the biggest goal of HBCU Elite, is to help student athletes get to HBCUs. But from there, there's also a couple other things. Like I was mentioning earlier, I do believe in developing a whole child. So I'm also trying to do programming and planning with companies that end up doing sponsorships for the HBCUs, getting partnerships together with them for internships, job opportunities upon graduation that are specifically created for HBCU student athletes who are going through and then going to end up in the workforce. And then the one thing that I'm very passionate about is the mental health component of things that I'm working on, which is basically just creating, I don't know if you know, I'm 33, and so I have men that I know that can still to this day, when you meet them, all they're going to talk about is their experience at a HBCU and that injury that stopped them, or that thing that kind of put them in a position where they weren't able to become who they were supposed to be athletically. And so I think that is a huge part in the Black community. It almost causes like a stunted growth, in my opinion. And when you meet those men, they see and they have desires to do different things, but all their life, all they've been praised for is sports. And so when they get to their senior year or their last year of eligibility, and now that sports is over for them, it's like, what's next? Because I've never been praised for anything else. No one's ever told me I'm smart. No one's ever said, oh, this is the area of strength for you as well. So I want to develop a curriculum specific to HBCU student athletes, and year 1, year 2, 3, and 4 specifically go over things that prepare them on how to enter school, provide them with the support they need year 2 and 3, and then year 4, how to use the skills that being a student athlete has given you as you get ready to enter the workforce. So.
Awesome. So is this more open to geared towards high school seniors, high school juniors?
So because we're trying to make sure that it's as simple as possible for all the coaches and no one's violating any NCAA eligibility, it's open for high school juniors and high school seniors starting August 1st. So as long as it's your class of 2022, class of 2023, it's open for you to be able to create a profile, and then the coaches have open access to be able to go view the profiles.
Oh my goodness! Well, thank you all for bringing up your website. I'm hoping that definitely people check it out. I'm sure people are going to check it out because it is an amazing website. You have something? Okay, what's going on, Jacques? What do you?
Tierra says, inspiring to see the adjustment from sports journalist to educator. Often people stick with things that they aren't passionate about. Kudos to Tara for taking the risk.
Thank you, Tierra. Thank you.
But yeah, this is an incredible organization. Thank you for having the ambition, the courage, the bravery to kind of step out and do something that is so necessary. I mean, I would love to talk about one of the things you talked about, NCAA and those being mindful about those violations, the things that PWIs already know about. And not something that we're so really smart about, but then as people become more competitive, they're gonna be looking at that. Like, when did you recruit? Where were you recruiting this kid from? It could be so many levels, so many things going on. But yes, I hope that everyone, because time is up. So I see him saying time is up. Tell people how they can get in touch with you, how they can reach out to you, and yeah.
Absolutely. So on Instagram, our page is HBCUElite.org. And on Facebook, it's HBCU Elite. And those are really the best ways to get in contact with me. And you can also visit the site if you are a student athlete at www.hbcuelite.org.
Awesome. Well, that's a wrap for this week. Thank you all so much. I will see you next week for the Nurse Doc Show, 10 o'clock. Make sure you tune in for another exciting episode. Have an amazing week, beautiful people, and know that you are loved, you is smart, you is beautiful, you is funny. Have a good one.
Thank you.